Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom Airsoft. It's good to see you again, and if it's your first time here, then as always, it is good to see you, and I hope you're going to stick around. Okay, well, welcome to our weekend video. Those of you who follow the channel already know that we normally upload 2 videos a week. I will normally look to upload a video midweek, normally on a Wednesday. Those videos will normally be gameplay based, either me testing out equipment we've looked at here in the studio in the field, or just general gameplay, very often at my home site, Tazball Airsoft here in the Scottish Highlands. Now, at the weekends, like today, we'll normally upload a video on a Saturday. Every weekend, they're normally these studio type videos, and in these videos, we'll normally look at replica reviews, gear, introductions to certain replicas, tech, unboxings, all that kind of good stuff, everything related to our great sport and hobby that is Airsoft. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, or if you've been following the channel already and you haven't subscribed yet, then please do get subscribed to the channel. That way you won't miss any of my uploads and keep up to date on everything we're doing here at Rock Bottom Airsoft. Okay, well with that out of the way, those of you who watched my previous video up in the command center, which is where we sometimes do other videos, in there I was showing off some of the stuff we might look at. So I thought today we'll start on a series of videos, maybe not all in order, we'll do it spaced out over the rest of the season, but we're going to have a look at P90s in Airsoft. We're going to do that with a P90 that I've got plans for. I've already done a little bit on, but we're not completely there yet. So, here we go. This is my P90. This one, it's quite an unusual one really. I've not encountered this in the field much. This is a Classic Army P90. I've seen many P90s by other brands, but like I say, this one by Classic Army, bit of a different one. But yeah, so there you go. That's an Airsoft P90 in all its glory. Now, we're only going to be focusing on AEG or electric P90s. You can get gas blowback P90s. Very nice. But as those of you who follow me already will know, I'm not an expert in gas blowback by any description. I don't have any gas blowback rifles apart from one slightly poorly AK based gas blowback rifle, which I never use in game. It's more of a wall hanger. So yeah, I tend to focus on electric. I do like my gas blowback pistols and my non-gas blowback pistols, but for my primaries, I tend to stick with electric. I know what I'm doing with them. So there we go. That's what we'll be looking at today. This is going to be an introduction to AEG or automatic electric Airsoft P90 variant replicas. There's loads of them, loads of different designs. As I say, this one I've got here, this one is by Classic Army. This one, I actually got this one pre-owned, which is why it's going to be a project on the channel. So before we get into P90s, just to let you know, we're going to be looking at a few videos in the future after this one. Not concurrently, we'll space it out a bit so we get some different stuff in there, but we will keep coming back to this P90 as it evolves. I'll do a tech video on it showing you how to strip down the average P90 to the gearbox. We'll have a look at the gearbox. We'll also do a video on the performance of this one. I'll get some gameplay out as well when we've done some modifications on it and some good stuff like that. So we'll do a bit of an overhaul of P90s, but for today, we're doing an introduction. So I think what we'll do first, as we always do when we're looking at a new replica that we haven't looked at on the channel, is I'll give you guys a quick look around it, and then you can see how it looks, see if it's something you'd fancy, and then we'll have a chat about the Airsoft P90. Here we go, guys. guys, well, it's quite an unusual looking thing, isn't it? The FN P90 that the replicas that we have are based on is a PDW replica primarily. It's aimed to be, as it is, a small replica. It was built with a very specific round in the firearm world, which, you know, was really built to counteract body armour for support staff in the military. However, for us in Airsoft, it does make a nice compact design. You get very tight in on it. It is very small. It's hard to describe. It's about a similar size to an AR-P9 if you've had experience with the G&G AR-P9 or something similar. So pretty much the size of any standard PDW style replica you'll come across, but with a very futuristic look to it. Now, let's have a look at the brands that you can get one of these in. Now, pretty much most brands make a replica of the P90. That would include JG, Cyma, Cybergun, Tokyo Marui, S&T. Novrich makes one, but the Novrich one is OEM'd by Cybergun, so it's the Cybergun Novrich P90. Krytac have a new version of the P90. Obviously, it's going to look just the same pretty much, but we'll get to that in a moment. There's a little bit of things that have been done to that one. And obviously, we've got the Classic Army one like we have here. There are different brands available as well in the States. So you guys that are watching over in the United States, you have some other options. On the more affordable slant, I did actually see one for sale. I think it was on Evike. It was only $45. Now I would imagine that that's not a skirmishable replica at that price. That's incredibly affordable at that price. So I would imagine that's more for backguard and plinking. But what I did find is price-wise that here in the UK, for a skirmishable, reasonably decent P90 replica as an AEG, you're looking at between £120 at the more affordable end, right the way up to £450 for, you know, for more advanced options. So you're going between 120 British pounds all the way up to 450 British pounds here in the UK, and anywhere in between that, those prices vary wildly. So you can go from the low end all the way up to high end pricing and everything in between, and that will get you some form of skirmishable P90 AEG replica. Now, if you're over there in the United States, as I say, you have quite a few more options that we have here in the UK, but you also have the same options as us. So JG, Cyma, Tokyo Marui, Cybergun, Novrich, and all those good brands there. You can get all of those options, and your range is from around about $145 all the way up to $409. So I think for you guys that the most expensive P90 replica that I could find, the most top end price as it were, was the Krytac P90, and here in the UK that retails at 450 British pounds. But you guys over in the States, you're getting a bit of a bargain. You can get it for $409. So a bit more affordable for you guys. But again, looking at those different brands, you're going to get differences. Now, most of them will come with a similar build quality, I would think. This Classic Army is particularly well put together from what I've found. It's a metal upper receiver, so this part here all the way along here, and the charging handles, which are ambidextrous, which do nothing, they're just for show. That's all full metal, so you've got all full metal there. Everything else, apart from your outer barrel and this mock suppressor that's on the Classic Army variant, is polymer. So the whole of this stock and lower receiver is polymer, just like the real firearm version. The real firearm version is polymer. It's a space age type of replica. So yeah, just like the real thing, metal upper, polymer lower, metal suppressor and outer barrel. You don't have to have a version with a suppressor. You can keep this replica much shorter by just having the standard muzzle flash on there, or muzzle brake should I say rather. The muzzle brake comes on a lot of the variants. Most variants you look at will not come with this suppressor. The Classic Army version does, but most do not. It's a rather short inner barrel on the Airsoft P90s that I've encountered, but that doesn't seem to give a problem for range or accuracy. If you do decide that you're going to go with one of these, I am a big fan of Cyma and JG at the affordable end, as you know, and I do think that the Cyma ones do have a metal upper and a polymer lower. If any of you guys happen to have a Cyma variant of the P90, maybe give us a shout in the comments, let us know how you find it, let us know how you've got on with it, because I was thinking of getting another of these by Cyma and seeing if I could do a really wild build on it. But yeah, I've heard good things from other people for the Cymas. Now, that's at the more affordable end. If you're going with Cyma, JG, you can go and step up a little bit, maybe go with Tokyo Marui. The Tokyo Marui replicas can be had for around about 268 British pounds. So they're kind of in the middle of the road there. Again, Tokyo Marui, you'll get your usual build quality for the internals. We'll get to magazines shortly. Externals wise, I'd say the externals are probably better quality on maybe even a Cyma or a Classic Army or any of the other brands that we've mentioned, just purely because, I mean, I have nothing against Tokyo Marui. Internals are absolutely awesome, and in many cases the plastics that they use, you cannot tell that they're plastic in many cases, but I have found on some of their larger replicas, such as PWs or rifles, they can be a little bit creaky in places, so keep that in mind. And then if you want to go to the extreme high end of Airsoft P90s, I think the most expensive variant at the moment is the Krytac. The Krytac's about 450 British pounds, $409. You also have the option for the Novrich P90. The Novrich one, I know a couple of people at my home site that run one, and they've been very impressed. They've found that it's been really effective. Held one myself, and I've got to say, people are saying it's just OEM'd by Cybergun, which, as I mentioned, you can get a Cybergun variant of one of these P90 replicas for about 120 British pounds. However, the Novrich one is somewhat more than that. It's about 350 British pounds. However, there has been work done to the Novrich version, and to be honest, you can tell it does shoot quite well. So I haven't got one myself. I've encountered it, and it does seem like it's fairly decent, but obviously you are paying for that extra performance. Then we go on to the Krytac, which again, I've got a couple of friends that have Krytac P90s, and they are awesome. I mean, the 450 British pounds, 409 US dollars, but it's a lot of money, but you definitely get what you pay for with those ones. The externals are beautiful quality. The performance of them, they shred. They've got a good rate of fire, and they've got a really good trigger response. Just generally really nice replicas. So something to bear in mind is that if you're going for the affordable end, I quite like them. I think they're absolutely fine. You'll have no problems. They're highly upgradable. You'll get good quality externals in most cases, and they're easy to work on, like I say, and pretty reliable. If you go to the high end, you're going to get what I would class as a smoother, pre-upgraded experience, which means you don't have to do any of the work. So what are we looking at work-wise on one of these? Well, as I've already mentioned, you get short in a barrel. You get a rotary style hop unit, which is accessible from that little flap underneath. I don't know if you can make that out on camera. It's just under there. There's a little flap there for accessing your rotary hop up. You get a version 6 gearbox in one of these. Version 6 is very easy to work on. If you've worked on gearboxes before, when you open it up, it's just really very similar to any other AEG gearbox. They're all very similar when you open them up, with some slight differences with other replicas. But this one, once you get the motor off and get used to the motor being at a funny angle, because it's external to the gearbox, it's pretty much a simple gearbox to work on. Very easy to get to. You've basically got 2 screws at the back here, and if you can make that out, that slides up. That's your battery compartment, which again, battery space is something you might want to consider. So let's take a look. That comes off at the back, and your battery compartment is in the rear there. Now, it doesn't look like there's a lot of room in there. But there is. You can get brick type batteries in there, no problem. I've managed to get batteries in there. So if you were to be removing the gearbox, there's only 2 screws in the back you have to remove, and the whole thing slides out the back. Very easy to get at the gearbox on one of these. And because the motor and everything is all one, you don't have to worry about taking pistol grips off or anything like that. Very, very simple to work on. I definitely recommend it if you're looking for a replica to tinker on. Let's put this cover back on and then we don't lose it. Okay, so again, as you can see, taking it apart, simple. If you want to separate the upper and lower, you press this button here and the whole front slides off. So it's just pressing that button down there, if you can make it out on camera, and then you slide the front off. That gets you to your inner barrel. It also gets you to your hop unit. So very easy for cleaning, very easy for modifications, just generally an absolute pleasure to work on. And I think that goes for pretty much all brands of Airsoft replica P90s. Really easy to work on. So that's something to bear in mind, guys, if you are thinking of buying a more affordable one, like what I normally do, and then upgrading it yourself to get it shooting how you want it to shoot. So we mentioned batteries. You can fit batteries in there quite easily. A lot of sites will recommend that the majority of the more affordable ones will run on NIMH batteries. Obviously, as you move up the range, you'll be able to use LiPos. However, I use LiPos exclusively along with lithium ion. So in this particular replica, I use a Titan 7.4 volt, 3000 milliamp hour lithium ion battery when I've been testing it. That seems to work fine. I've also tried it with 7.4 volt LiPo batteries. And again, they've worked absolutely fine. Now, with regard to the actual magazines, if you buy one of these, you are going to get a magazine with it. This brings us on to one of the downsides of the P90. It's traditionally been a downside. It's not hard to get hold of these magazines. They're an unusual looking magazine. Pouches are available. I've got some pouches for these. You can order pouches. Not a problem to get hold of pouches. And the pouches are quite affordable. They will hold these quite well. I've not found anything else that'll hold these apart from a specific P90 pouch. So if any of you guys out there have had success with other pouches that'll hold one of these, let us know in the comments. Help people out. If you're going to be buying spare mags for one of these, the prices vary wildly. Again, you can be looking at £9 British all the way up to £45 British. £9 British normally get you a low cap magazine. On average, the low caps in these hold about 68 BBs to 70 BBs. If you're getting a high cap, you're looking at the usual 300 BBs. And mid caps, you can look between 170 to 200 BBs. Lots of them have different issues. The high cap magazines are notoriously bad for feeding. They don't feed well at all. The mid caps are okay, but again, not the best for misfeeds. However, again, Krytac brought out their own magazine. That's the ones that are £45, and those feed flawlessly. They're absolutely awesome. Now, as for the use of the Krytac magazines on other brands of Airsoft P90, I do not know. I'll admit about that. I haven't had a chance to try that yet. So if any of you guys out there have had a shot with the Krytac magazines on a non-Krytac P90, let me know how you got on in the comments, because that is something I'll consider doing with this build. I'll buy some Krytac magazines if they're more reliable feeding, and we'll go from there. Because a good reliable feeding magazine is important. You might pay a little bit more, but it makes the game more enjoyable if you're not misfeeding every 2 minutes, you know. So yeah, so you can vary wildly on the price of magazines. This particular magazine is a Tokyo Marui one with the dummy rounds in there. You can get them without the dummy rounds. These, again, even though the TM, not the best feeding magazines in the world. So be careful with your magazines, guys. That's something to be aware of if you do get hold of an Airsoft P90. With regard to rail space, as you can see, this particular one has a top rail. You have 2 very small side rails if you wanted to mount lasers, torches, that type of thing. You do get a set of open sights built into the rail on a P90, just like the firearm version. So if you want to use open sights, you can. I find this very much a spray and pray replica myself, but but you know, there is the option for sight mounting on there as well. The magazine loading is very strange. That goes in and then pops down like that, and I think it looks pretty cool. You do get used to doing magazine reloads, but not as quick as something like an AR or an AK based replica for reloads. I would imagine with practice you could get fast at it. As for the comfort of the replica, it's very comfy. Those guys out there that know me will know I'm quite tall, and I can use this replica with no problems. You can get it tucked into your shoulder nicely. It is very comfortable to use. You've got this front hand stop. So yeah, it's just designed to be pointable and very compact. Weight wise, not very heavy at all. Not light, but not very heavy. About the same weight as your average AR replica. So you've got that going for it as well. Sling mount options is this basically. You've got a loop at the back. You put one of these through and then you can put a single point sling on there. Other than that, you'd be looking at, you know, rail mounted sling options and that kind of thing. You could run this without a sling because, as I say, it's very compact, very easy to use. So that really is about it for if you get a P90. Lots of options available for you, from affordable to not so affordable and everything in between. So let's have a look at some more downsides of it and upgrade opportunities. The hop unit, there are upgrade options for that, but as standard, the hop unit is really not too bad, to be honest, if you can get around the feeding issues, which, as many of you know, with any bullpup type of airsoft replica, you're going to get feeding issues if you don't have everything spot on, such as Steyr, the L85. A lot of the bullpups will give you problems with feeding. And this replica is bullpup because it feeds here, behind the trigger, which is what makes a bullpup. The trigger is in front of the action, which gives you a bit more barrel real estate. The motor and everything's in the back here. So as you can imagine, your trigger is operated by push rods, like it is with a lot of airsoft bullpup style replicas. Your safety is mounted just below the trigger. You've got single shot and you've got full auto, and it's just a toggle switch there onto safe. Now when you operate the trigger, obviously you're operating standard trigger contacts in the vast majority of replica P90s. That's somewhere that you could look at upgrading. With the Krytac and the Novarich P90s, they are pre-upgraded, so they run a MOSFET. They also have found a nifty way of making your trigger much more responsive and much less spongy, even though it's still on the bullpup configuration. So that again is something you're paying for, but something you could look to upgrade on a more affordable version. Motor wise, the standard motors, they're fine, if not a bit sluggish, so you could look at upgrading that. And as it always, you've got the same upgrade potential with barrels, hop units, hop rubbers and internals for your gearbox, as you do with the more common to see on the field replicas, such as AR based pattern replicas and AK based replicas. So there are lots of upgrade possibilities for the P90. There's lots of parts available out there. There is shortages on a lot of parts with most replicas at the moment, but yeah, you know, there is a lot of replica parts available for this one. So it's got a good base. It'd definitely make a good base for an upgrade, which brings us on to this particular one of mine. I've already put a Warhead brushless motor in this. I've done that as a bit of an experiment. I've had the gearbox apart and I've reshimmed and re-greased and made sure that it's ready to go and made sure there's no damage in there. And then I've whacked in a high-speed Warhead brushless motor. So I am going to see how long it takes for this to shred itself in gameplay. So hopefully I'll take this to my next game in the field and we'll see how it gets on with that Warhead motor, see if it can keep up and see how strong it is. If it is, then that's a good endorsement for the version 6 gearbox and for this particular Classic Army one. But you guys who've had Cyma JG will know that their gearboxes are built like tanks. They're pretty solid, and with a few nice upgrades they can be really good shooters. Or you might choose that you want to, you know, have deep pockets and go for the Krytac, or the Novritsch P90s, which really do shoot well. I have encountered those both in the field, and as I say, they are good shooters, good range. But I've been happy with this one, and I'm also usually happy with the Cyma replicas, as I say. So let me know down in the comments if you've had experience of varying brands of P90s, what the pitfalls have been for you. As I say, the only things I've noticed that you can have problems with on P90 replicas is feed issues, but no worse than Stereog, maybe a bit better than Stereog replicas. Spongy trigger, which is a problem for quite a lot of bullpup type replicas. So that's no biggie for me. It doesn't really bother me, to be honest, in gameplay, but I know some of you guys, you don't like the spongy triggers. And that's very similar to the Stereog type replicas. If you've encountered those before, it's got a spongy trigger, same as those. And magazine compatibility. They might be compatible, but you get feed issues. You get lots of feed issues on P90s in general. From what I've read from the communities and the forums and from my own experience, you can have problems with misfeeds if you get a poor quality magazine. So like I mentioned earlier, if any of you guys have tried Krytac, the new magazines on non-Krytac P90 replicas, let me know how you got on in the comments, just to share, just so I know whether it's worth me buying any really and giving them a try. So for the future, coming up, I'm going to strip this one down in a future video and show you how to take an Airsoft replica P90 apart, show you the gearbox, show you some of the things you can do to it. And then we'll have some gameplay footage as well of this out in the field, seeing how it performs. I've had a chat with a couple of my friends from Tazball Airsoft who have kindly agreed to let me compare their Krytac P90 to a more affordable P90 such as this one. So we should also be able to have a look at a Krytac P90 on the channel at some point, and we'll also try and compare them in the field. So we'll get those on the range, or we'll actually get them in gameplay as comparison. So that should be pretty good. So if that sounds like your kind of thing and you don't want to miss it, then as I mentioned earlier, do get subscribed to the channel. That's all coming up in the future. But in the meantime, I will put a link in the description to a supplier that has quite a number of different brands of Airsoft P90 that I found online, if you fancy one of these. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you found it interesting and useful. If you did enjoy the video, then please do drop a like on there. And if you want any more content from myself, you can find Rock Bottom Airsoft on Facebook and Instagram. There's pictures on there, and I sometimes put stuff on there of things I'm up to. So if you want to keep up with what's going on, you can find me on there as well. But apart from that, thanks very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.